Okay. Okay, so hi, welcome all to one of the events by Reticulum for the MEM and MIM applications. Myself, Ashwin, and I'm one of the co-founders of Reticulum. And today we have a session on these two programs. And I would like to introduce Nandini and Jhalak. Nandini is a fourth year undergrad at NITW Biotechnology, and she is going to moderate the session along with Jhalak, who is an associate analyst at Novartis, who also a undergrad, also a graduate from NITW. So over to Jhalak and Nandini.
Great. So thanks a lot, Ashwin, for the background and for the sweet and short introduction. So just to give a very quick background about Reticulum to some of the people who might be new to the forum. So Reticulum, we started somewhere starting of this year as a community which aims at bringing people together, bringing people to one forum where they could connect with each other. They could, have a kind of networking platform, because networking is something, which is spoken about a lot, but not all of us are very good at it or not aware of how to go about it. So this is just an initiative to maybe help the people who are still trying to figure out stuff. Maybe they are during their undergraduation or post-graduation, or even professionals, working professionals who might still struggle with finding the right people and the right connections in their network. So this is just a step towards helping all of us to come together and get to know the right people so that we could get help at different stages of our career. So that's a brief about Reticulum, and without further ado, I think we can get started, and I'll hand over to Nandini first if she has anything to say.
Yeah. So now that we know what Reticulum is, let's get a brief about how today's event is going to go on. So this is going to be a candid panel discussion kind of thing where both of our speakers will weigh in about their opinions, basically about what MEM and MIM programs are and which one is right for you, whether you should go for it or not, things like that. We'll start by the two speakers introducing themselves, and followed by that will be around 40 minutes of preset questions that we have. And after that, we will open to 15 minutes of questions from the audience. So let's get started. Ujjwala, would you like to introduce yourself?
So thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. A little bit about myself. I'm a chemical engineering graduate. I graduated in 2019. And after that, I worked for 2 years in the edutech sector. Post that, I'm here at in the Sergi France campus at ESSEC. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much, I think, about me, short and sweet.
All right, Manu, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Nandini. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Yep, my name is Manu. I am a mechanical engineer from 2015 in NIT Warangal. And after that, I have worked at a bunch of different companies, some which were 6 people only, like a startup. And then with a small business, I did my master's, and I worked with the HR tech company in Bay Area for 1 year, 150 people, and then now working with Amazon. So I have worked with all kinds of companies, different sizes, and it has been a very interesting journey, like how I moved from mechanical to towards tech and product management. And we'll be happy to share that today. But yeah, I think overall, I just enjoy using technology to empower users and companies to, I guess, do what they do best, or help customers, or use information to make decisions and simplify their lives. And I guess that's why I'm in product management. So that's about me.
Awesome. So I think now that we know our guests, where they are coming from, and a brief background, we can just get started with the main agenda of the session. And I think the audience would first of all like to know, from each one of you. So Ujjwala is doing her MIM and Manu is doing his MEM. So first of all, we would like to know, what exactly is MEM/MIM? So from all, like both of you, and how is it how is it different from an MBA degree, which we very commonly hear of? Because these two are something which have recently become very popular. And how is the course structure? What is the course structure of each of your programs, and how is it different from a regular MBA? So you could just take turns and talk about your respective programs.
Okay, I'll go first. When I had decided that I wanted to do an MIM, actually an MIM is commonly known as a graduate's MBA, because it doesn't expect you to have too much of experience. Neither does it really expect you to have a very fixed 5-year plan as to what you want to do or what you want to pursue really. As long as you know that you have a business acumen and you're here to do the business side of things, you can pretty much apply. So here, people who join usually they have work experiences from 0 to at the max 2-3. You also have people more than that, but I think this is the ambient. They expect you to have an ambient somewhere around the average, yes. Yeah, I mean, for me, how it's different from an MBA is purely the work experience side. And when I decided to actually choose it, I didn't per se I didn't have a lot of experience in the business side of it. I didn't know whether I wanted to pursue marketing or HR or any of the verticals for that matter. And my course particularly, it gives me that opportunity to truly explore and understand different verticals and eventually make a decision after 2 years. So do I get into the course structure too, how the course goes along? And I'll speak with very, very specific to ESSEC actually.
Yeah.
Okay. The beauty about this course for me is that it gives you, I pick about 95% of my courses. Like I have 7 courses which are mandatory. And beyond that, it's basically what is it that interests me. So what people do is over trimesters, they take a couple of subjects, explore it, do an internship maybe in whatever they've studied until then. If it works out, great, you can go ahead and take the core courses with respect to that subjects. So it, like I said, it gives me that opportunity to actually flexibly make decisions. Maybe when I eventually take up a job, they're not going to ask me why is it that I actually have internships in multiple sectors. So that's what really attracted me mainly to the MIM course actually. And yeah, I mean, I don't think MBA gives you that sort of flexibility. It expects you to know what you want to do from day one. Yeah.
That sounds good. Manu, would you like to weigh in, tell us more about the
Sure.
MEM side of things?
Yeah, sure. So MEM, as all of you already should know, it's Masters in Engineering Management. It's called, like the degree is different at every university. Some have Masters in Engineering and Engineering Management. Some have Masters of Engineering Management. But it's offered by many universities right now. There's a consortium called MEMPC. It has 9 universities, but there are more than that that offer this course. Well, what is MEM? It's basically, I would say, like a combination of engineering and management, as the name says. But like actually, when you do the course, you have the options to keep your technical skills alive and not just alive, actually continue working on them, hone them, and then also learn the basics or like the core communication, management, and marketing skills, negotiation skills that you would need to be successful in an engineering environment. So MBAs are, I think, very versatile. You have courses that can prepare you for jobs in any industry, but engineering management helps you to be successful in a technical industry or technical environment. Now, that doesn't have to be, I would say, internet companies or, internet companies or software companies. It can be like a mechanical company. I have friends who went to Lockheed Martin. I have friends who went to civil engineering related companies. A lot of them go to consulting, just like from MBAs. So it's a quite versatile as well, MEM. But as I said, like the focus is not going to be just core MBA kind of skills, but how to be successful in a technical environment. Why I chose that? Because yeah, as I was saying, like my I would say my journey from I think it started from NIT Warangal. I was Google Student Ambassador in my final year, and that's where I realized that I enjoy I would say technology, startups, design thinking, those kind of things more than the mechanical engineering. And I wanted to use technology to like bring that scalability factor in my work. But I did not want to be a coder. I liked coding, but that did not give me the satisfaction. The satisfaction always came from like by deploying things or making products that make users happy and makes their life easy. So I was looking for a place where I can do all this. And so for first 2 years, I was like, just that's why I joined startup, just exploring how things work. Then I joined the small business in taxi cab industry, and I was helping this company to transform from um, paper-based operations to digital operations. And when I was doing that, I was working with customers, I was working with developers, I was working with business side, trying to figure out the core pain points, how to resolve them. And all of that, like I started enjoying it, and I was looking for like excelling in that and improving those skills. And I was very clueless, like if there is a course to do all that. I did not want to do MBA specifically because I thought I have the skills I need, like the basic skills in communication side or soft skills. And I would be happy to learn more when I would join the next company. But I wanted to be somebody who can be like really good in a technical environment. And I also wanted to explore a few technical fields, and uh, I was not getting that kind of flexibility in MBA. So when I started looking up courses, MEM came up. I was also in a lot into design engineering, or I don't know what else it's called, but design engineering is basically where yeah, I think design is in tech. Design is when you understand the problem, come up with a solution, and then set the vision for the product or like the business. But yeah, those are the things I actually liked also. So I applied for both kind of courses, design engineering related and MEM. But then I finally chose MEM because it gave me the right combination of uh, uh, yeah, business and engineering side. Um, yeah, happy to go deeper into what MEM looks like, but we can talk later
Yeah,
also.
that sounds like a really good answer. I think we'd like to know a little bit more about what kind of roles open up to graduates from MIM and from MEM. I think Manu already gave us a good brief about what kind of roles you can pursue after an MEM. But Ujjwala, can you talk a little bit about the future scope after an MIM?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing with I think it was pretty evident the stark contrast between the two courses is that
Yeah.
with the MIM, it's you have no technical relation anymore, and I think that was one of my strong motivations too. After the MIM, you kind of pursue anything at the entry level. Entry level plus one. It depends on what course, what stream you're actually getting into. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can go into detail because I'm in my first year and I'm figuring things out too. But yeah, I mean, like I already said, it's a graduate's MBA. It doesn't expect you to know a lot, and it is purely there to just guide you and really realize what you're good at and what you enjoy doing in the
Okay.
management side. Yeah.
For MEM, yeah, as I already said, you expect to have a little technical edge. So I guess the apart from the ones that I mentioned, the main job roles that I have seen people going into are product management, project management, program management. And then on consulting side, you have a bunch of them, but then also business analyst, product analyst, even data scientist. And then there are a lot of roles in non internet companies, and there's no limit. Like there's like you can do a lot of them, but it's none of those roles will be purely coding or purely design or research roles, because the whole goal of MEM is to start working with people, with teams, leading teams.
Right.
Um, so you are looking at roles which involve which require you to work with people, basically.
Okay.
So I think like another way of thinking about it is try to see what kind of things you enjoy doing. Like um, yeah, I mean, at some point I wanted to do research. This was before undergrad. And I was, in fact, I wanted to be in biotech side because I really enjoyed biology. I had it for my 11th, 12th. And I just loved like finding answers and spending a lot of time, and like I have always been a very curious person from like beginning. So but then yeah, when I joined NIT Warangal, the reason I changed to mechanical was because equally I like to build things. I like to build products. I like to like do projects that are real, like you can actually like physically present rather than just on computer or research. Um, but then the thing that changed me, as I said, was the exposure to technology that I got from Google Student Ambassador. So I have always been very open to like, okay, I like this, but what else do I enjoy? And slowly I learned that working with people is something I definitely want in my career. And like but I don't want to lose the analytical side of me or technical side of me, because I really enjoy working with numbers, uh, estimating things, taking data driven decisions. And I just was looking for something which lets me keep that, but then allows me to work with people and make those decisions at business level. So I think that's true with anybody in MEM. Like all jobs in whichever field, whichever role you would go after MEM would expect you to have like a mix of technical and engineering. And I don't know if there has been a session from like from your side about how to pursue jobs yet, but especially in US,
We
and I'm
haven't.
sure in Europe, like you are by yourself. You have to figure out how to go about companies and um, how to approach people, how to find alumni, how to apply referrals, everything, right? I think because of that reason, there's no like one kind of job that you can go to. You can, as long as your story matches with like what you want to do, and as long as your courses are helping you achieve that, you it's up to you how you convince the employer that this is the right place for you. So there's no limit to um, what roles you can get after, I guess, either degree.
Yeah.
Since you just brought up this point about, that there are like different countries have different requirements, were there any factors either of you, while selecting your program or your country, did you like how did you select the country that you want to study in? If you could share some tips about that.
Okay. So I think when I was deciding, I very quickly realized that engineering wasn't for me, and I didn't want any kind of relation with that. Being frankly honest, Yeah, then I started looking at what is it that interests me and how to go about it. And I realized that um, like I said, I'm still at a position where I cannot very firmly say what is it that I want to pursue in which vertical. But I knew that I completely wanted to strike out engineering from medicine and go by the management side. And I think I had a little bit of exposure through my work experience. But yeah, when choosing the MIM, with respect to the why exactly I chose it is because I like the course structure. That was the first thing that attracted me about MIM. And yeah, I started researching further about where is it and how is it. And what I did was I applied to the top 6 universities, and it just happened so that the top 3 are in France. I didn't really choose the country. I think it just happened because it was so. But I do not regret any decision. There are pros and cons to everything that you choose to do. Here, with respect to France, obviously here the culture is it's a huge thing. Like they expect you to immerse into their culture. Language barrier is obviously it exists, but there are a lot of positives too. I really like the work life balance here in France. Opportunities are just as many. And yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring things out, but it is it's a lovely experience until now, at least. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
For me, it was a very different story. Well, I'll tell you not just country, I think how I chose Cornell over others. Well, I was lucky that I was already in US at that time, so I had an option to visit all the universities. I had admits from a bunch of different universities, and what I decided to do was visit each of them and see how do I like being there, and just learn more about like the people over there and courses. So obviously, I think all of us would go through that Excel sheet exercise of creating your, what are you looking for, making some ranking and evaluating like that. But keeping all that aside, when I visited Cornell, I completely loved the place. Like it's a small college town, and like it's in middle of I guess mountains and waterfalls and trees, and it's beautiful to be there. And maybe it can get really boring if you're there for 4 years for undergrad, but for masters I loved like the vibe that I got by being over there. And then in a college town environment, communities are very like close knit. They help each other a lot, students, professors, everybody. And that was great. And I also really liked my advisor. In fact, that was one of the big reasons I chose Cornell, because I think, I don't know how many of us think about it, but once you get an admit, it's quite important that you try to understand who would be helping you at your university. We don't pay enough attention to that. We just look at the name, degree, and everything. But yeah, my advisor was like, I would say she is the most inspiring person in my life. She like the way she works, the her way of making decisions, the way she interacts with people. She makes herself available for uh, any student at any time, irrespective of how many personal things she is going through. So I think those were the things that just like it it was very clear for me that I would want to work with somebody like that, no matter where I am. So there are things like that I think we should consider while picking a university. While applying, I like as Ujwala was saying, it's okay to apply to as many universities, and once you get an admit, then weigh your options, and at that time decide. Another big factor was that Cornell offers flexibility in choosing courses. So I had option to literally take any course that is offered at Cornell. Like there was no limit to which course I can take, or cannot. Most of the um, degrees or courses have I guess set curriculum where you have uh, maybe 80% fixed courses and maybe 20% open. But at Cornell, we had, I think, 40% fixed courses, which were specific to engineering management, like decision analysis, economics, and other things. And then you have to select your remaining 60%. And like, I mean, I took courses which are like physical, what is it called? Physical science, physical training in India. Like I took courses in dance, I took courses in like army training. I took courses in golf and things like that, just to keep my other extracurricular side alive too. And I did not get any option like that in other universities. But I also took some of the, I would say, top courses offered from MBA school at Cornell, including negotiation, marketing, and then I wanted something on strategy side. So I had a business strategy and startup related courses. So I think that was one of another big factors in choosing Cornell. But as I was saying, it's you may not be able to do this much research before applying. So you might want to go by like simple criteria in the beginning, and once you have your options, then figure out your way of like evaluating these things that you will actually experience when you are at university, and use that to pick one.
Nice. So, as to a beginner, what would you suggest? How should one, go about that Excel sheet? There's this one strategy where you choose two dream schools, two matching schools, and two what
Safe schools. Yeah.
safety schools. Yeah, yeah. So, what do you think about that? And should you like go by say QS rankings or something like that?
Yeah, it's there's no like one answer to that question.
Okay.
I would say that uh, skip all of that. First, try to figure out what do you care about, like what are you looking for personally out from your masters. By the way, before I get into that, one thing that all of us should know is um, it does not matter a lot which university or even which course you picked, as long as your story, your background tells the right thing on the resume. You can get like, yes, the getting the interview part is a little hard, but once you're there, nobody really cares much about what you did in masters. They really want to know who you are as a person, and that conversation almost never comes up again. So my point is that yes, university and masters and degree and all that matters, but only to certain point. What eventually matters is what skills you have built, what connections you have built, what stories you have from your masters or undergrad, and that will help you be successful at job. So now keeping that aside, you would still want to do your best when you're picking university. So I would say keep yourself to be very open on what kind of um, universities you apply to. Don't go for all top ranking or all safety schools, but try to find a combination of both. And and also always aim like really high. You should always apply to a couple of top schools.
Yeah.
Um, um, but then, yeah, once you have that, then figure out what are the criterias you are looking for. For example, in my case, the flexibility in academics was one. I think the location was another one. The course duration was another one. How much it's gonna cost? What are my options to like fund it? The timeline, whether it has internship, do I need internship? Um, and what else? Yeah, I mean, there are many factors like these that you will come across as you're evaluating. But Ujwala, anything you want to add from? Your
Yeah, very similar. In fact, I think since this is about also whether they want to do an MEM or an MIM too. So I think this was an advice that a senior gave me. It's almost very difficult to kind of pinpoint what you want to do, but it's very easy to eliminate what you don't want to do. So that's what I kind of did when I was also choosing what is it that I wanted to do next. So once you pretty much decide whether you want to do an MEM or an MIM, beyond that it is based on research. I think one big advantage that I saw is that for us we have 4 rounds. Do we have 4 rounds for the MEMs? I'm not so sure, but it gave me the opportunity to kind of divide how I wanted to apply to. Same thing, you always push for as much as you can. You never underestimate yourself, but you also have to be a little, realistic too. So once you kind of decide on everything that is important to you, list pretty much similar to what Amal has already mentioned. Um, Go about it, apply. For me, what I did is I did most of my research around how the course is actually looking, because I thought that was the most important to me.
Right.
Everything else equally important, but secondary. So once I decided that, I kind of applied to a lot of high schools and a couple of mediocre schools in my first round. And then I started thinking, if it doesn't work out, then I still have my second round and third round and fourth round. But it's also important to realize that they take the maximum number of applicants in round one, and most of the scholarships are also handed out in round one. So it's also important to kind of play that safely. Yeah, I mean, in detail about it's pretty much what he's already mentioned. You have to look at funding options are very important. The internship, I think it goes back to how the course actually spans out, things like that, future prospects. So I think one that wasn't mentioned already, because US is such a a global market, you have everything there. Here in Europe, you have countries like, for example, France. It's very uh, very good for their marketing firms. So and since the language barrier exists, it's pretty much and I'll be honest, it's pretty much pointless thinking you can pursue consulting here, or any client face role for that matter, because they expect you to speak their language, and if you can't do that convincingly, then I don't think there's a point. But SEC and the MIM degree being very popular, it has its reach, mostly focused on Europe. It's a very popular course in Europe. Also touches a little bit of the Asian market, and a little bit of is very, very popular in the Gulf too. Like, you have a lot of firms from Dubai that come and hire you. So you do have it. But I think it's important to kind of understand what is the biggest market here. It only makes sense to do that. Yeah. So I think that's another aspect that people should consider.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I have more tips, I guess, on that, and I can actually share my screen if that's okay. I just found this file from 5 years ago. Let me see. Okay. This is how I did my. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow,
so this is
intense.
So I basically started with a simple Google search. As I was saying, I was openly shooting out in the dark, like, what do I really want to do? So you can see on the left, there is universities and programs. I have like 71 of them, or 70 actually. What top is the title row? But like, I went through all kinds of programs. I was literally looking for, there's no program for product management. Now there might be one or two. So I was looking for masters in engineering, masters in management, masters. I went through MIM also, like, you'll find that somewhere in the list. But I started with this. And then as Ujjwala mentioned, I started doing elimination based on certain things. So what I did was basically have all the like my personal evaluation criteria, like acceptance, easy to, I guess this was supposed to be applying, and then easy to get in, desirable, enthusiasm, fit for career, and create your own formula based on like weighing on different things, like what is your overall score. And then, yeah, I have something, I don't know what formula I use for this score, but I have like a bunch of scoring mechanism going on here. Then once I started like once I shortlisted them, I don't know where that column is, but then you need a place where you can follow up on each, like what's the status? Did you submit all the required things, like including recommendation scores, deadlines, what's the link to like learn about it? Because in that like 4 or 5 months, you have to go through so much content that you keep like forgetting, okay, this for this university or that university, and having a place like this will really help you. And add anything in there, like literally yeah, just have too many things over there. But this is one tip I would give, like keep yourself very organized from the beginning. Otherwise, it will be hard for you to keep a track of which ones are the best for you. And this will help you like also finalize which, like after you get acceptance, you can further evaluate on each of these.
That makes a lot of sense.
This looks really great. So organized.
Yeah, I think it just makes life easy if you use technology to just like do the hard work, and you don't have to remember things. But yeah, it was an exciting time, I would say, to like learn about all the things and go through all the options that you have. But at some point, like once you are into uh, the work environment, or like work, you're in working lifestyle, you have like 5 days you are spending your time at your with your employer, and then maybe evenings and weekends you're spending by yourself. At that time, uh, I guess all of this will not matter that much. But then, as I was saying, like all of this will help you create the right story to get you to where you want. And there's no ending to it. Like I'm always looking for the next thing. What do I want to do with my like where do I want to work next? What projects do I want to work on? What scope or what kind of things I want to learn? I started off with analytics. I was product manager for analytics at previous company. I was in a like a chatbot space. Right now, also I work on a voice bot for Amazon, the customer service voice bot that tries to help customers with their questions and understands and answers. But then, so I was new to voice space though. But so I'm always like looking for, okay, so I'm good at voice, I'm good at analytics. Maybe should I look into like things like smart home speakers or new technologies based on voice? So this is, I think, never ending thing in your life when you are like looking for the next thing. But it would be great if you keep yourself organized throughout these process, and it just helps you bring clarity. So
This is really cool. Now, I just out of curiosity, since you mentioned that, since mostly people start applying once they start working in some jobs or some form of employment. So, according to your experience, your own experience, personal experience, and going by the experience of your peers who you might have met in your classes, what do you think or what do you feel about, how would you advise people to start applying, or when would you advise people to start applying? First, maybe get a little bit of experience for a year or two by working in some company or somewhere in some domain of their interest, or freshly apply right after graduation.
I think Ujjwala might have some fresh perspective. So why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I think the course itself, it doesn't expect you to have more than 3 years. So it pretty much tells you that the course is designed for people who hardly have any exposure to the business world. And then I'll stick by that. I sometimes wish that I had just 1 year of experience, because my second year was very much useless. I could have kind of applied immediately and joined after 1 year of experience, but COVID happened and all of that. So maybe I don't regret it that much to waiting for 1 year, because now my classes happen like, in the college itself. So unfortunately, the last year it wasn't that. But yeah, I mean, answering to your question, there are multiple sets of people we can really talk about. There can be somebody who's joined the core field, realized that it's not for them. There's somebody right in college who realized that it's not for them. So for the person who's joined in a core job, maybe he'll take some time to realize that, he or her take some time to realize that. But either way, I don't think it should exceed beyond 3 years, because more than that, it makes no sense. Then you um, spend another 2 years and directly join an MBA. The course will seem a little too easy, because at the end of the day, it's talking about really, really basic things in the business world. It starts with that and then progresses. So yeah, what about you, Manu?
Yeah, sorry, I was still like looking at that sheet, and I also noticed something. Cornell was one of the lower ones in my list. It was not the top ones. Um, what I wanted to again say was this ranking helps, but your decision actually matters a lot on the other factors that I was talking about. Like once you get acceptance, then evaluate. Cornell was the first application that I submitted just to get started. Like literally, I just want to like submit one so that I can work on more. But then you never know how things turn out. Anyway, there are a lot of personal factors that go into this decision making for university. Going back to your question, Jhalak, when is the right time to apply? I think the most I would say critical part in job application is actually having the right resume, because that is your single document that that's the single document that helps you get your step into like into the door, right? So spending a lot of time even before you join a university or course on your resume is very critical. And like I think even in MIM, they must be focusing on that quite early in your course. And in MEM also, the career development committee, they like encourages you to fix your resume, get it reviewed by as many people, and eventually have something that tells your real story. I don't recommend having like 5 resumes for 5 different roles. I think it's not needed. As long as you tell your story in the right way, you will find the right job with that. Um, but start early. Like just make sure you have a resume that's good enough. You can never have a perfect resume. Every time you look at it, there will be something new. But have it like uh, yeah, have a resume which is good enough and start applying. I would say 6 to 9 months before you want to be out, like be in that industry. Um, uh, the reason for that is a lot of university hiring happens roughly 9 months before the actual position, like the entry level position. Now, the things are a little different if you have work experience, because if you don't have work experience, then you are applying for these entry level courses, programs in universities, and hiring happens 9 months, 6 months before. You will always find companies which hire like 3 months or immediately, like startups, but that's like the general trend. But now if you have work experience, it's not just you're not just applying for university recruiting kind of programs in companies. You are applying for professional jobs too, which are for those who already have been working and they are just switching to another position. And those jobs don't come out like 9 months or 6 months or even sometimes 3 months before. Like if you think about how companies hire, like let's say if there's a position in a specific team and somebody decided to leave that, now they need somebody to take over that position. So they will never know it 3 months before even. So making sure that you have your LinkedIn set up nicely so that when recruiters search, they would find your profile when it's appropriate. making sure you have alerts set over there, job alerts, so that you can get, like, based on your location and what kind of program you need, you have those recommendations coming in. And if I would give only one tip, then that would be apply as soon as you find the job. Don't wait too much. If you know you can get quick referral, that would be great, but otherwise just go for it, because that's what I, in my personal experience, have found to be helpful.
Right. Ujjwala, what do you think?
What do I think about job prospects after the course, is it?
Yeah, I think the question was intended at like how much work experience should a candidate have ideally before applying? Like before
Okay.
applying for the master's.
Right. So I already mentioned that I think ideally it should be with from 0 to 3 because
Oh,
the
right,
course, yeah, targets that itself. I'll add to what Manu said about prospects after you join the course. Works very similarly here too. The thing is, a lot of it depends on your LinkedIn connections, how connected you are with them, how much you interact with them. Yeah, networking is like absolutely very important here. I know in India we have like a career cell. That's not how it works here. We do have a career service of sorts, but all they do is actually prep you for interviews and um, give you suggestions about your CV. We also have a career website, and we do apply on that, but a lot of it is by ourselves, like talking to people, building a network. LinkedIn is very important. Monster, yeah, and other job portals for that matter. So yeah, I mean, also a couple of other things is that we do a lot of internships in the middle. You can do as many as possible. The course ideally can be done within 1.5 years or even less for that matter. Everything in the middle is basically filled with how many internships you do. You have apprenticeships also. Yeah, I mean, that is getting into nitty-gritty of that. And ideally, as Manu already mentioned, there are certain times of the year where they hire, like June and in December. And accordingly, you plan, you send out your resumes, and if things look good, it happens.
Right. So I think we'll take this one last question from our set. Till then, audience members, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can unmute your mic in a couple of minutes. So I think the last question we'd like to address is how much sense do you think it makes to do one of these management programs abroad if one plans to come back to India? How does this compare to an Indian MBA from, say, IIM or ISB or XLRI?
So ideally, you kind of study where you want to work because essentially now, for example, certain set of subjects that I learned, be it marketing or even accounting for that matter, it's very specific to the Europe region. And what I was thinking of is, for me at least, my career plan is that I would at least like to earn back what I've invested. Otherwise, it makes no sense coming all the way here. And after a year or two, it mostly depends. The next jobs just depend on the experience that you've built till then, the work experience. So yeah, I mean, coming back to India, most of the people that I know, they come here to work here for a couple of years or others. I mean, gain some, like a lot of people have family jobs too. But that's priorities that you set. As for the degrees recognition, it's mostly popular in Europe, I'll be honest, and some Asian markets like Singapore and the Gulf, but not so much India. You will get a job, but then there's no point of really gaining all that experience and all of that in Europe, you know.
Yeah, totally. Manu, what do you think about that?
Sorry, I was lost in the DMs. Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, how do you think an MEM or an MIM from US
Going back
or
to India?
yeah, going back to India.
I I mean, I don't think MEM is there yet in India. I would say, I don't know if this is specific to MEM or MBA or MIM, but when you are going for studies abroad, it should not be just for the degree. So if you are just looking for MBA degree for XYZ reasons, then getting it from anywhere should be good enough. Um, Go for abroad if you actually want to, like with an intention to work there for a while and use that time to make a decision whether actually you want to live there. If you always want to come back to India, then you should strongly consider the ones offered in India. As I was saying earlier, which course, which university you got it from will not matter as much as what you actually did. Um,
Mhm.
Now, one of the reasons that you will have to work in like abroad after university, after your course is done, is the cost. You will not be able to, I would say, pay back all the costs that you incurred in the master's or MBA if you just immediately move back to India. Everybody has different life situation. You might be able to, but uh, so what I would recommend is go with a mindset to be outside of the country or abroad for 5 years at least, 1-2 years with your degree, and then 2 to 3 years spending with like actually working. And then you can always make a decision and switch things. Like I know people who have started working in US after their masters, who have worked here for 5 years, and now they are moving back to India. Now they are working with Amazon, and when they're going back to India, they will continue working with Amazon. So it makes it easy to work when you're working with a global company. You can go back. So
Yeah.
I think there's nothing stopping you from going back. You can always go back, but go with an intention to be outside for at least 5 years.
Absolutely. All right. So, audience members, if you'd like to unmute yourself and start shooting questions, you're welcome to do that.
Hi, Uj. Shubham here.
Hi, what's
How are
up?
you?
Good, how
Yeah,
are you?
I'm doing great. Cool. I just had a question. So, I was looking at a few MBA programs last year, and
Okay.
many of the MBA programs have different expectations from Indian students. That is to say that, let's say that Harvard has a average MBA GMAT score of 730, but
Mhm.
especially Asian students, that is Chinese people and Indian people, they expect us
Mhm.
to have in the upper 760s or 770s. So is it the same for master's program? Like, did you experience anything like that for your Indian background? Did you feel that you had to go an extra mile just to get the same thing that Europeans could have gotten half your score or something of that sort?
Agreed. I mean, I don't think they blatantly stated. Did they state that somewhere? Because that's ridiculous if they did
No, they
that.
don't state it, but
Yeah,
it's pretty
it's
obvious from the
understood.
statistics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because the thing is, they also have the admission committee. They have a certain criteria that they have to fulfill with maybe international students, Asian students, or French students. So basically, you're competing with all the Indians who are applying for the same position, same seat. Yeah. Yeah, it happens anywhere, even for jobs for that matter, right? Like even in India, even when you're applying to sometimes a woman or a man is chosen over you to kind of fulfill some kind of criteria. It happens, but these are all unspoken. You don't have to really think of that. I don't think the difference is that high. And personally, I wasn't too affected with it. All I focused on was like do the best that I can. That's it.
Cool.
And
Yeah, that makes sense.
by the way, I
Yes,
would
Manu, whatever
say
you were saying.
one thing on that. When we like, yes, when we are in like whole university hunting phase, we go by these elimination criteria and everything. But remember that it's my personal opinion, but I think it's not like if you have Indian background or Asian background, you need these many score. There's nothing like that. Like the reason that happens is uh, some of the top candidates from different like from Asian and Indian countries have good scores. So it's not like you need a good score to be in the university. If you have a nice profile, or if you have a great story and you can actually show it, then the score may not matter as much. And as you might already know, you need not have average score or even close to that to get into the doors. You just need enough that you are like academically sound and sufficient. And then once you're into the process, once they don't eliminate you based on that, then it's all your application and recommendation and your story. So yes, it's good to like aim for high score, but remember that's not gonna like make or break anything. Unless you have like a full score, that would be superstar. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with most of what you said, but I think it's still important. I mean, goal number one is to ensure that you have a really good score. It doesn't definitely guarantee to make something, but you definitely break some deals. That's for sure. So it's I think while aiming, at least try and do the best that you can. And beyond that, obviously, SOP is the most important document. Your letter of recommendations hold a lot of importance. All of that said and done, but it's also important to aim and try and get the best score that you can and spend some time. Don't give it in a hurry. All of that. You have some good considerate amount of time to prepare for your GMAT, GRE, whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, one of the things you mentioned was another question on my mind about the letter of recommendation, which is, I think, one of the most important documents while I was going through the application procedure. So, one thing I've noticed, at least of course, in our college level, is that most of the LORs that my friends currently have, many of them are extremely generic, like there's like some kind of template which all profs have, and they just sign it and give it. But of course, when you're applying for an MEM or an MBA, such a generic template won't work, right? It has to be much more personalized. So, how did you guys go about your LORs? Like, who did you ask it from, and what are some key tips according to you, which make a good LOR?
Okay, Manu, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, generic LORs won't help because think from a admission committee perspective, they are tired of reading those documents like literally all the time. And so unless there's something interesting on the document, they wouldn't care much about it. So now how do you get that? Well, when you're in US or Europe, people generally give you nice recommendations. They talk about you based on their personal experience and your story, but it's hard in India, I know. So I think it's not best to like create your recommendation and just ask them to sign, because that is also something that admission committee can tell whether it's like your own language, because it will match with the application essays. So what's best is maybe create a story or talking points or things that you think a recommender can talk about in your resume, in your recommendation, and then help them craft that. And I did that. I was very clear, like I'm applying for this universities, they are looking for these things, and we have done these things in past. Is it okay if you can talk about like my experience with FA cycle or my mechanical engineering association experience in my resume, and give some specific examples when you did better than you were expected to do. I think that is one way of going about it. And who to pick, that completely depends on your personal experience. Don't go for like head of the department or like director and all that. Go for people who you have worked with enough and who can vouch for you, who can talk about like you not just as a professional, but a little bit at personal level.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Because I've had like secondhand experience where basically the summary of the story is that it like maybe a letter of recommendation from just a professor is which is more personalized, is much more valuable than LRG, so something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in India, exactly, it's very difficult because they don't know the importance of that, and here in Europe especially, they take that extra mile to make it personalized because they know how much value it holds. All that you can do is actually speak to a professor, make sure you're close with them, and let them know that you're interested in coming back and someday getting a letter of recommendation from them. So I mean, it just every time you visit the university, just drop by, say something. It's just that. That's it. There's nothing else that can really get somebody to do that for you. That's all. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else? How many of you, right now it's October, so in next 2 months, I guess everybody will be applying. 2-3 months, yeah. No other questions?
So yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I had two questions basically. What would be the career path for like 10 years down the line for a European and American MBA versus an Indian MBA? That's the first question. And how difficult it is to get into foreign good universities, top universities, and versus top IIMs in India. Like just now we discussed that we need LORs and a good resume to get into top universities abroad. But then in India, you just need a good CGPA and a good CAT score to get into good universities, right? So yeah, summarizing, like what would the career part 10 years down the line for Indian versus foreign MBA, and then second part is how difficult it is to get into these universities, again Indian versus for abroad.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I was actually wondering if Jalak wants to talk about it.
No, you go ahead.
No, I don't have much to add. I mean, 10 years down the road, a lot of things can change. You don't know if you're going to be in the same country, if you'll be pursuing, like I may not be pursuing product management, although I really enjoy it. So I think I will be, but I could like go with a startup or do something of my own or something. So it's very hard to say 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
I think maybe 3 or 5 years is more reasonable. But then I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah,
But
actually my
from a,
intention for the question was what you have seen people doing, like in general, where do they end up in like 10 years? Because we think of long term when we do our masters, right? Yeah.
from
Ideally, yeah.
no, why don't you add? Go ahead.
Ideally, this is a question maybe you should be asking an MBA graduate, but I'll attempt to answer it. So the one big difference that I've noticed in job markets in Europe and in India is that so ideally the work experience. Like if you're going to apply to an MBA outside India, I think the minimum they expect from you is about 3 years, but people really are talking 5-6 years of experience. So they already have a huge head start. So in India, although we see like people joining right after university, so not as much knowledge, and obviously the positions, I mean the work positions that they will be won't be the same. Secondly, I think it's much more dynamic outside India. In India, what I've noticed is that you join as an associate, you work for 2 years, you become senior associate, you work for 2 years, you become manager, you work for 2 years. It's set, okay, as long as you're doing what you have to do. You don't really see this guy's really good, let's push him this. It doesn't happen. It's fixed. Okay, here, although it completely depends on how good you are, and it's much more dynamic in that sense that you can expect unexpected promotions. Things work like that. Incentives, they don't really care like this guy's been here for longer, so he should get promoted. It doesn't work like that. It just depends on how good you are at what you're doing. And yeah, I mean, again, 10 years down the line, I don't know. I only have 2 years of experience working, and I'm not even doing an MBA, so I don't think I'll be the best person to answer that question.
This question is coming from those application, that the typical application questions we have for most of the programs. That what is your 5 years down the line, or what are your short term and the long term goals? But honestly, I feel that it's not just about the programs or the admission committee. They don't just want to understand they don't want you to tell them that, okay, I want to do XYZ thing after 5 years and maybe something else after 10 years. And they don't want you to give a foolproof plan, because talking from a personal experience I had with in one of my interviews that I had with the MBA school. So I was asked, so this was an informal conversation post my interview, in fact, where I was just collecting feedback from the interviewer about how everything went and where did I, mess up, or what went well, what did not go well. And he just asked me, he just went ahead and, okay, what are your plans after 5 years? And I told him, I have no idea. Like I'm done with my interview, and I'm telling my interviewer that I have no clue what I want to do after my 5 years of after 5 years of my life right now. And he was pretty happy with it, if I tell you, in fact, because he was like, thank you for being so honest. And I'm very happy that you're not giving me those same, the same typical generic answer that, okay, I want to be in consultancy, or I want to do XYZ thing, I want to be the CEO of this company or whatever. Because now even the interviewers have started, or the admission team for that matter, have started to be more open-minded in that sense, is what I feel. Even though they do ask you these questions on the applications, they also expect you to be a little creative over there, how you put your goals and your ambitions in that application form, and how you tell your own story. But it's very, especially in today's world where everything is so dynamic, like we change our goals maybe every day, who knows, right? And there's no harm in that. One day you could be like, I want to do an MEM, and the next day you could be like, just chuck it, I don't want to stay in technology, I just want to go do an MBA, whatever. So 10 years is too long, is what I feel. And even 5 years for me is very long because I have no clue, even if I'm going to do my MBA, I have no clue what I want to specialize in, or what do I want to do after my MBA. I have no clue whatsoever. I know this session is not about MBA, but since this point just came up, so I thought I'll just share it here. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty okay, and being okay with not knowing everything and not having a plan is also perfectly fine, is what I feel. I mean, that's all it is about, at least for me, that I think I'll just figure it out on the way. So there's nothing to stress about of, what will happen 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the response.
Awesome. So do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I think Ujjwala and Manu were so great that they just answered all the questions even before they came. So in the interest of time, I just wanted to thank you both for your time today and for such an amazing session. Both of you were really impressive, sharing all the minute details and giving tips to the applicants out there. I'm pretty sure the attendees right now and the people who will see this video later on would definitely benefit from it. So thank you, Manu and Ujjwala, for your time today. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we are a networking community of STEM professionals and students, and we just want to create a platform where we can learn from each other's journey, connect, share, and grow. There's the link for our Discord community will be shared shortly on the chat, so you guys can join and check out such amazing, cool people out there and get answers to your questions. Thank you, team Nandini and Jhalak, for carrying out the session so well. And I just wish you guys all the best, and until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Imran.
you.
Thanks, team. It was great
Thank you.
having us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.